Welcome. Thank you for joining me once again. This is session 2 of our Beginner's Guide to Yoga Movement series. Today we're going to start our practice working with feeling the breath all around our torso. So the diaphragm moves down and pulls the breath into the lungs, and as it releases, it pushes the air out of the lungs. Then the secondary movement is the rib cage expanding to the sides and actually even into the back. You have more space in the backs of your lungs for breath than you do in the front. And so what we want to do is be able, as a yoga pranayama breathing practitioner, is we want to be able to feel all around our torso how breath expands and contracts. Not just this up and down motion that we have with our diaphragm. So what we're going to do is we're going to take a strap. So everybody have a strap handy. And I already have mine looped, so I'm just going to bring it around over my head. And I'm going to bring it around my rib cage. And I'm going to gently pull it tight. Now, if you find your breastbone, which is your sternum, and find that, and then put that strap just above the breastbone. So that, just below the breastbone. And we want it just tight enough that it doesn't fall. So it's not so tight that it's squeezing you, and it's not so loose that it's going to fall down like pants without a belt, right? Now, what I want you to feel is that if you spread your ribs out to the side, so trying to make yourself big, you can feel that there's pressure coming into the strap. And if that's not happening, then just make it a little bit tighter, all right? Now from there, what we're gonna do is adjust. So you can see I'm sitting up on a cushion. You can even be sitting in a chair if you'd like to. I recommend that you do not sit flat because that's gonna cause a lot of effort to happen into the legs, and we wanna focus on our breath. Now, first, let's just find a nice, comfortable posture. So we're going to sit up tall. The ability of the sacral plane to shift is very important, and we'd like to have the knees resting down. So I can't drop my legs any lower than this. And if the legs are floating, and you have your legs simply crossed like this, either have the calf so it's resting on the foot, or you can use blocks like this, or rolled blankets or something like that, to support you so that the legs aren't suspended, right? So you want to feel held and you want to feel grounded with your legs, all right? However you're at, then from there, noticing that you feel solid and even in the hips. Lengthen up through your spine and just allow your arms to rest along the sides. You can either have your hands palms face down or up on your thighs, or you can also just have one hand resting in the other in your lap. Notice how my arms are just resting along the sides of my torso, so I'm not pulling my arms back, I'm not trying to bring them into any kind of a format. I simply want my arms to be resting, okay? Now from here, allow your eyes again to just gently gaze down off your cheekbones. Your eyes have a lot of neurological input into the brain. And so when your eyes are moving around or intensely into something, they're going to distract you. So we want the eyes to be soft and gently gazing downward. You could also gently close your eyes. Feel any tension that you feel in your jawline. And notice, do you have your forehead lifting or does your head feel forward? And let's draw the jawline back. We drop our chin just a little bit. And we're softly looking down. Now drop your attention into your breath. Take a deep inhalation and exhalation, and notice again that your strap is just tight enough so that you can feel the pressure against it as you breathe. And notice the movement of your diaphragm. Even if you'd like to, you can bring your hand to your abdominal wall below your breastbone and above your navel if you'd like to feel the movement of your diaphragm. Now remember in our first class, we talked about the 4 parts of the breath. So you have an inhalation, you have an exhalation, and you have a pause at the top of the breath, and you have a pause at the bottom of the exhalation. So you can feel your diaphragm moving downward and releasing upward. Notice the pressure of the strap around the rib cage. And now with your next inhalation, envision that you're spreading the ribs to the sides as you inhale. And as you exhale, gently release and feel how the strap softens and the rib cage closes and comes back to the center. As you inhale, the diaphragm moves down, the ribs spread to the sides. And as you exhale, the diaphragm releases and the rib cage closes. And now be very aware of not over-efforting. Sometimes we put too much energy into the breath and it will create tension that ripples up through the spine, and it'll start to cause inhibitions in the breath rather than freedom. And now as you breathe in this next time, notice, can you feel the breath in the back? So can you fill the back of your breath, back of your body with breath? And you'll still feel the movement of the diaphragm. The ribs are expanding. And I like to envision that the breath is going in all directions from the center, and then as I exhale, it's coming all the way back to the center. As I inhale, all directions, and as I exhale, back to the center. Now notice as you're breathing this time, your inhale moves downward with the diaphragm. You feel the ribs spread to the side, and you're feeling in the back at the same time. Now notice that your shoulders are quiet, your jawline is released. You're simply feeling the breath expanding, feeling the breath returning to the center, expanding, returning to the center. Now we're going to take one more deep breath in. Pause. Exhale all the way out. Pause at the bottom of the exhale. And again, inhale in all directions. Pause. Smooth exhalation, returning back to the center. Feeling the strap loosen, squeezing the breath out gently. Pause at the bottom. Inhale slowly, diaphragm ribs, back. Pause at the top. And smooth exhalation, releasing to the center. Gently squeezing the breath out. And pausing at the bottom of the exhale. And then just simply release the breath. Let it find its own way. Notice the energy in your breath without you doing anything to manipulate it, change it. All the way in, out. And then we're going to very softly, we'll take the strap off. And we're going to put that off to the side. We don't need that right now. And we're going to put all the pieces together that we learned last class. And we're going to be doing something that's called a C-series sun salutation, or it's the traditional 12-position sun salute. So
bring yourself to the front of your mat. We come into Tadasana, standing mountain. You have your blocks along the sides of your mat in case you would like to use them. We line up from the crown of our head, shoulders, hips, heels, all one on top of the other. Arms are simply resting along the sides of your torso, softly gazing downward. Now let's bring our hands to heart center. We have even weight. Follow the big toe, little toe, center of the heel on both feet. Let's take a deep breath in. And then as we exhale, our arms release. With our inhale, they rise up into high prayer. Lift up, and then just softly, we're going to arch back without throwing the pelvis forward. The arms stay in front of the line of the torso. And then as we exhale, we're going to spread our arms, bend our knees, come down into our own lap, tuck our chin, and look towards navel. We want to keep the ribs and the thighs connected so we're not hanging in the back, hanging in the hamstrings. So deepen, bend at the grade lines. Now we're going to take the blocks, bring them underneath your hands, and you step your right foot back and to the outside. Drop your knee down, point your toe, lift yourself up. Hands are at the hips. And now we're just going to simply come forward and back. We come forward and we pause. Inhale if you'd like to. Bring the palms together, lifting up, and then we just gently arch back in a variation of a crescent moon. Notice I'm not dumping my pelvis and my hips are staying squared. As I exhale, I'm going to come down. Now you could keep the blocks underneath your hands, step back, or you could have the blocks away from the hands. Now coming into this position, we're just going to step back and go into our downward facing dog position. Now from here, hinge forward into the plank. No high knees, no saggy bellies. We drop our knees down. We're going to keep the butt up. We have a slight external rotation on our upper arm, and we're going to bring the chest to the floor. So it's 8-pointed stick. Knees, chest, chin, and then the hands. Then we're going to inhale. We pick up, come onto our belly, point our toes. Now we lift our chest up, and we're going to come into a position which is called a cobra. So in the cobra position, let's take our fingers, bring them underneath our groin lines. And we're going to gently push the pelvis down, keep our legs relaxed so we're not lifting our knees away from the floor. Our feet are on the floor, our knees are on the floor, and we're pushing the pelvis down using our butt cheeks. Our elbows move towards our feet, and then we lift our chest up. We do not lift the legs up. We're using the spine to pick up the spine. Then let's take the hands out, bring them by the sides of our chest, and we're pulling forward. So we're dragging ourselves out of our pants, keeping the pelvis, the knees, and the feet on the floor. Then we pick up onto our hands and knees. We rock back. So remember this action from last class. We rock back, we pick up our knees, and then we hinge back towards our downward facing dog position. Coax the legs to straighten by just gently trying to press the heels down. But notice how I do not move my spine. It's all the work in the legs. Now from here, I'm going to drop my knee down. I'm going to use my blocks again just for research, it was my right foot that went back, so I'm going to take my right foot and bring it forward, lift myself up away from the lunge, and then I pull my knee forward, I press back. Pull my knee forward, and I press back. I'm going to pause right where I feel the work in the hips, but I'm not dumping at my belly, and then I'm going to bring my palms together, lifting up. I arch back gently. Notice how I do not dump forward. Then as I exhale, I'm going to come down, still use my blocks, pick up my back knee. I'm going to push off and bring both of my feet back to the front of the mat. Hang down in a forward fold. Now I'm going to take my arms open, and as I inhale, I'm going to lift my chest up. So I come into this half forward fold position. As I keep rising up, I pull my hips down, come up to a nice high prayer, and then I softly arch back, lifting my chest without throwing my belly forward. Exhale, release, come back to the beginning, back to where I started. Now let's do that again. Release your arms down. Inhale, high prayer. Palms together, arching back, lifting my chest up. Exhale, come into your own lap, standing forward fold. You can keep the hands on the floor, or you could use your blocks. We're going to step our left foot back into the outside. I'm lining my legs up, so I'm creating a right angle. Now from here, drop the knee, point the toe. Now use your front leg to lift you up. Hands are at the hips. You pull yourself forward with the front leg, press back, forward, pause right where you need to. You can stay here or lift and arch back in a crescent moon variation. As we exhale, you come down. Now you can keep the hands on blocks or put the hands on the floor. Now you can stay here and just step the knee forward back like that, or if you'd like to, you can pick up the back knee, push into your hands, and step both feet back into a down dog position. Then hinge forward into a plank. No high knees, no sag bellies. I drop my knees. My feet stay on the floor. Push into your hands. Bring the chest forward of your thumbs. So it's feet, knees, chest, chin, and hands. 8-pointed stick. Then I press into my hands. I lift up, come onto the belly. Now point the toes. Lift the chest, but not the legs. So my feet, my knees, my pelvis, they're down. So if I take my hands, again, press down with the groin lines. Keep the legs heavy, lift my chest up. My elbows go towards my feet. My shoulder blades are down my back. Then take the hands out, bring them by the sides of the ribs. I'm pulling forward, coming out of my pants, coming out of my skin like a snake. And then I lift up onto my hands and knees. This rocking action is what brings me back. I pick up my knees, drop them down. Pick up your knees, drop them down. Pick up the knees. Now hinge back, downward facing dog position. Breathe. Now to bring my left foot forward, because that's the one that went back, I can drop my knees, use my blocks, and step my foot forward. Or if you'd like to, from your down dog, you'll simply look between your hands and take the left foot forward. Again, your blocks can be handy for that action. Drop your knee down, point your toe, and then you lift up away from that lunge again, using your front leg. Hinging forward, hinging back. Hinging forward, hinging back. Pause right where you feel the movement of the hips, but not the dumping of the spine. Then bring the palms together, lifting, arching back. Lift the chest up into a crescent moon. And then as you exhale, you come down. You can have the hands on the floor, or you can have the hands on the blocks. You turn your toes under, you push off, both feet back to the front, standing forward fold. We take the arms, we sweep open, pull our heart forward as we pull the hips down, palms together, arching back, lifting the chest into a standing back arch. Exhale, hands come to heart center. Let's do that one more time. So we take a deep breath in, exhale, the arms release. Inhale, high prayer, Lifting, arching back without throwing the pelvis forward, even weight in the feet. Exhale, we come into our own wrap, standing forward folds. Using blocks or not, we step our right foot back into the outside. Drop your knee down, come up away from the lunge. Slowly come forward, following the breath. Softly find where the pose is before you dump. You can stay here or inhale, lifting, arching back. Exhale, you bring your hands down to the floor. You can step back, keeping the hands on the earth, the knee on the earth, or pick up, press back, downward facing dog. Hinge forward into the plank. No high knees, no saggy bellies. Exhale, knees, chest and chin, 8-pointed stick. The hips are up, the tail is reaching towards the feet. Then you press into your hands, lift up, come onto the belly, point the toes. Groin lines are buried, knees are down, feet are down. Lift the spine with the spine. Hands are along the sides of the ribs. Pull forward, your elbows stay towards your feet. We lift up, the shoulder blades stay down the back. We're on the hands and knees. We use this lift and then this rocking action to come back into a downward facing dog. Take a few breaths here. Now the bottom of your exhale, you look between your hands. You will take your right foot forward and come into this high lunge variation with the legs. Then the knee drops. Keep in mind, you can have the blocks to do that action. We lift up. Come away from that lunge. Your right hip is dropping. Pull the knee forward, pressing back. Pull the knee forward, pressing back. Pull the knee forward, pause. Inhale, rising up, lifting, arching back. And then as we exhale, we come down. With or without the blocks underneath the hands. Pick up the back knee, push off. Both feet back to the front, standing forward fold. Take the arms, sweep open, pull your heart forward. Rising to the top, arching back, lifting the chest. And with our exhale, release. And we return back to the center, back to where we started. There's your C-Series salutation. So now we're going to work a little bit with our standing postures. So we're going to start out simply balancing on one foot. So if you'd like to, you can use the wall if you need to. And we're going to start out simply, we're going to grab a block, we're going to make it a little bit more challenging, right? So you can use your hand on a wall, and we're going to take the block, and we're just going to bring that block down onto the mat. And we're going to come up, and you're going to stand with both of your feet on that block. Now, if your feet are a little bit longer, you could take 2 blocks, end to end, or side to side, like this, and so that way you'll have a much better landing pad for your feet. Right? And then from here, what you're going to do is you're just going to simply pick up your right heel, and you're going to keep the hips squared up. So I'm going to gently turn here, and I don't need both of these, so I'm just going to use the one. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to start out by just simply picking up the heel of my right foot, and I want to keep my hips squared up. So this requires me to stay really strong in my standing leg. So envision that you're picking up the outside of the ankle towards your hip. And you'll notice that turns on all the muscles in the outside of your leg, which is going to keep your hip from flying out. Just pick the heel up. And then bring the foot back down. And then from here, you're going to very softly pick up the left heel, keeping the outside edge of your right leg lifting up. And bring the foot back down. Do that again, picking up the heel. Now this time, if you feel okay with it, see if after you have the heel picked up, keeping the hips exactly the way they are, you're going to pick up your knee. And when you pick up your knee, you're flexing at your hip. So you're not going to pick up the hip, you're picking up the knee. And then you're going to bring the foot back down. Now come to the center. So for me, I have to adjust where my foot is because I want to be in the middle of the block. I'm going to start out picking up my left heel. I can pause right here. You don't need to go any farther than this. Otherwise, if you can, you're going to pick up the knee by flexing at the hip.
right? So you want to be aware that you're not doing this kind of stuff or sticking the hip out, trying to balance by shifting through your legs, all right? And then release, come back to standing, and then try that again. So place the weight in the opposite foot, pick up the heel first with the knee bending, keep your hips squared, and then softly pick the knee up. Notice that you don't lean back, try to compensate in any way. Only go as far as your body's able to take you, and then gently bring the foot back down, adjust where your weight is, shift, pick up the opposite heel, keeping the outside of the leg nice and strong, so you're not letting the hip float away, it's staying towards the center. And then if you can, pick up the knee. One thing that's really useful for balance is to keep your eyes on that soft focal point. Soften your eyes, deepen your breath. Excellent. And then very gently, bring the foot back down and find your balance, all right? Now, let's come off of that block, and you'll notice it's going to be a heck of a lot easier when you're not standing in a block, right? And it's a good way to practice. Now, from here, what we're going to do is we're going to break down the movements for a triangle position. So, or excuse me, not a triangle, a tree position, right? So with the tree, what we're going to do is the same thing. So we're going to pick up our right heel first. We're going to lift the knee, and this is where we're going to start. And then keeping the knee and the hip lined up, we're just going to do a simple external rotation at the head of the thigh bone. Real simple. We'll just do that action. And you want to make sure that the knee stays right lined up with the hip. So it's an external rotation at the thigh bone. You're not using your foot, and you're not shifting the hips, rotating the head of the thigh bone. Excellent. And then release and softly put that foot back down. And now let's do the other side. So we bring the weight into our right foot, and then softly pick up the heel, pick up the knee, pause, and now we're just going to add this little external rotation. And notice how the knee stays right lined up, so I'm not taking it out yet. This is the rotation, first and foremost, that I'm looking for. Take your time. It doesn't matter how high the leg comes. You want to make sure that your hips stay squared up. You guys look great. Okay. Now from there, release and come on back down. Find both feet. Now, we're going to take this position, excuse me, from the rotation into a figure four to start with. Let's pick up the right heel. Then we pick up the knee. Now we're going to do the external rotation, then bring the ankle above our left knee. Now you want to keep your hips squared up. And all we're going to do is just work right here without letting your hips turn. So imagine that you have like little hip feelers right here. And the hips stay squared up. And now take a little seat and bend down and just feel this figure four that you're creating with the leg. And notice you're not doing anything with the chest. You're just taking a seat. Soften your eyes, deepen your breath. And then very gently stand up, lift the knee, and bring the leg back down. Hands are at the hips again. Now find your center. Pick up your left heel without changing the hips. Pick up the knee. And then you have this external rotation. You're going to bend the knee, put the heel right above the other knee, and stay squared up with the hips. Now you might notice left or right side's a little bit more balanced. Doesn't matter, right? And now we're just going to take that little seat, come on back up, take that little seat, and just pause right there with this figure four action at the leg. You'll feel that strength that you're building at the ankle, taking a little seat. So imagine like there's a little stool behind you, and your butt's going to go back down into that. So see if you can go just a little deeper here. Looks like you're going to take the seat down. So right now you're doing a lot with your knee, but not flexing at the head. Does that make sense? Mm-hmm. Okay. And then very gently, come on back up. Pick up the knees softly and bring the foot back down. So this is a good way to start working with the tree position. Now the tree, we don't want to change our hips. But now the foot's going to come onto the inside of the leg, and it's got arm movements and stuff, which are just the finishing, not the beginning of the pose. So find your feet again, nice and solid. Now pick up your right heel. Pick up the knee. Now you're going to externally rotate, and now see if you can just take the foot and bring it somewhere to the inside front edge of your thigh. Now notice where my knee is. I'm not bringing it anywhere because I want my hips to stay forward, and then I'm going to externally rotate the head of my right thigh bone. So my knee is going out not because I'm turning my hips, but because I'm rotating the thigh. Pause right where you need to before things start to fall apart. You could keep your hands at your hips, focus on your spot on the floor. Maybe you bring your hands to heart center, and maybe you fall over. Breathe. And then if you can, you might decide to bring your arms up. Now the arms come over heart center, not over your head. And see if you can just keep the hands together. So maybe you don't bring them up as high. And as a challenge, you could see if you could trace a line on the floor with your eyes, up the wall, up the ceiling, and maybe you can look up. Softly lifting the chin. You don't have to do that. And breathe. Notice. And keep in mind if you fall down, falling down is fun. One of my teachers, Richard Freeman, who is an amazing Ashtanga teacher, he used to say, falling down is fun. Don't be afraid to fall down. It's where all the good stuff is, right? And now very softly, you'll come down the same way that you went up. So you'll bring your hands back to your heart center and then to your hips. Look down and just release the leg and bring the foot back down onto the floor. Now find your balance point. Pick up your left heel without throwing the hip out. Pick up your knee. Externally rotate. See if you can grab the foot. It comes inside of your thigh. Pause right here. Don't do anything with the hips. Leave the hips the way they are, and then start to add the rotation at the head of your thigh bone. Eventually be able to bring your hands to heart center, and maybe the arms come up overhead, and maybe softly you'll be able to gaze up into your thumbs. And you're adding this external rotation at the head of the femur. And be very aware, don't get ahead of yourself, because when you get ahead of yourself, you might be turning away from center. See how precarious it is? I barely touched you. Breathe. Take your time. Soft, soft eyes. Notice if you're super gripping with your foot. And notice that you want to be pulling the outside of the thigh up, the outside of the ankle up. And then very softly, gently release the same way that you went up. So you'll be here, maybe you were looking up, the reverse of your process, until eventually you put the foot right back down to where you started and just find neutral. Now, if that's too difficult for you and you're going, Kat, that did not happen, you could have a chair. You could just very simply start here, just put your toes on the other foot and just be right here. What you're trying to do is start out being on one foot, slowly adding in this external rotation. That's all a tree posture is. Getting the foot way up into your groin line isn't the process, okay? And now from here, we're going to come into a posture which is called goddess pose, right? Now with goddess pose, you're going to have your feet wide, and I'll show you from the side as well. So your feet are going to be a little bit wider, and you want your toes not to be turned way out or turned way in. So you're just going to start out more just like a neutral position. Now, you want your knees to stay in line with your second toe as you do this movement. So you're just going to simply pick up the ball of your foot and rotate it out just a little bit. And you're actually doing that with the head of your thigh bone. So it's the knee that's going to be moving because the head of the thigh bone is rotating. Pick up the other foot and you're going to rotate out at the head of the thigh bone. Now bend your knees a little bit and see, are your knees tracing towards the second toe? That's what we want to be looking at. So maybe you're able to turn your toes all the way out. I'm not. This is not my favorite position. Now from here, you're going to take your hands and you're going to bring them into the outsides of your thighs. And then from here, you're going to press the thighs out into your hands, bend your knees just a little bit, and take a seat. And then draw your legs back up. Do the same thing. Bend the knees, take a little seat, and draw the legs back up. Now when you're doing this, your knees don't snap, crackle, or pop or anything like that. And notice, are your knees tracking towards your second toe? So you're pressing out as you take your seat down. And it doesn't matter how far down you go. Are you in a position where you have this even little seat that you're taking, so you're not tucking your tailbone under, you're not trying to get the toes as far out, you're not pushing with your arms. Get the muscles in the outsides of your thighs to do the work. Now once you're in the posture, wherever that is, then you can bring the arms into a right angle position, and here's your goddess posture. Notice if you're grabbing with your toes. Do the best you can and try to find that even seat. Give up the illusion that your feet need to be under your knees and your thighs are parallel to the floor. It can be done by some people, but it's a very challenging posture. Goddess pose isn't so easy, but it's really, really, really good for your hips. Soften your eyes, deepen your breath. You guys look great. And then very gently, you're going to release and straighten the legs, come back up. Now let's do that again. So bring the hands to the outside of the thighs. Let's press the thighs out as you softly bend your knees, and you just take that little seat. It doesn't matter how far you go. You can come down and come back up. Come down, come back up. Maybe you take your feet a little wider. Maybe you bring your feet a little closer. And just explore as you press the thighs out, tracking the knee towards your second toe. Then once you're set, bring the arms into a goddess posture and breathe. So you're not grabbing with the feet. You're not grabbing at the belly. Everything is soft. This is hips, thighs. Breathe. And then very gently, bring yourself up. Now we're going to come into a wide-legged fold. So you're going to turn your toes in, and you're going to have your legs about the same distance. And we're going to start out just by bending our knees and bringing our elbows down onto our thighs. Now look at your feet, and you have the weight even on the inside and the outside edge of your feet. Now lines are very important because if you're not paying attention to them, you end up in your knee joints when it comes to the legs. And that's not a happy spot to be. Now with your elbows on your knees, what I'd like you to do is take your thighs away from each other and notice that the weight goes into the outside of your foot, and you'll feel how your tailbone drops down. Now if you start to bring your knees towards each other, notice that the weight goes into the inside of your foot, and you'll feel how your pubic bone goes back, and I feel my hip bones start to lift. So just do that a few times back and forth and be really easy with it. So again, you can see how my tailbone drops as I take my weight to the outside of my feet. I'm doing that here. And then if I bring my knees towards each other, I'm actually internally rotating, and see what happens to my pubic bone, see what happens to my lower back. So what you're doing with your feet, what you're doing with your thigh bones is going to affect your knees and your back, right? So now, how does it feel to be right in the middle where you're not overly rotating out or in? This is the movement that you want. And then from here, come all the way down into a forward fold with your knees bent, and just let your arms hang underneath you. Tucking your chin, looking back towards the wall, or maybe you can look towards your pubic bone. And now very softly, see if you can coax your legs to try to straighten up. Maybe they do, maybe they don't. Soften your eyes, deepen your breath. And then once you feel like you're in a full forward fold, then just stay right with the legs as straight as they can be, with your spine as close to the legs as it can be. So again, if you come into the forward fold and you look like this, you're hanging in your back, you're not flexing up your groin lines, and this is really not good for you at all. So bend and come forward. And this is a lot easier because you're not doing anything, right? So when you get here, you're like, holy legs, this is crazy, right? Standing wide-legged forward fold. Now bring your hands onto the floor, lift your chest up, and then bring your elbows back onto your thighs. Now lift yourself up, hands to your hips, and come on out, pulling the hips down as you lift your chest up. Now we're going to do that again from this position. So lift your chest without throwing your pelvis forward. You're softly gazing off your cheekbones. Your shoulder blades are just resting. Elbows are dropping back and down. And then as you exhale, you're going to come forward, hinging at your hips, bending your knees just a little bit, and lengthening forward, 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 forward. Keep the even weight in your feet as you come down. Now this time, see, can you get your ankles? Or maybe you can get your big toes. Now when you get your big toes, you use your first two fingers. They come between your big toe and your second toe, and you put your thumb on the big toenail. Then from here, pull the top of your head towards the floor, and then gently bring your elbows out to the sides. You're not required to have straight legs. In fact, you get a much nicer fold if you put that fold in your groin lines instead of hanging in your spine. If it's possible, you would look at the ceiling past your butt cheeks. Are you breathing? Soften your eyes, deepen your breath. Lengthen through your spine. Soft, 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 soft eyes. Deep, 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 deep breath. All the way to the bottom, all the way to the top. Soften your eyes, deepen your breath. All right, and then from here, again, what you're gonna do is, can you straighten out through your arms, and you're gonna lift your chest up and lengthen up through your spine. So you'll feel the heart rising. Bend your knees just a little bit. Now release the big toe and bring your hands to your hips. And now when you lift your chest up, pull your hips down. Use the butt cheeks to lift yourself up. Soft eyes, you're not throwing yourself back. You have a nice even energy in the legs and the spine. And then release. And then you're gonna heel, toe, heel, toe, heel, toe, heel, toe. Okay, and loosen up. Awesome. Okay. So now from here, we're going to do a position which is called Virabhadrasana 1. So what we're doing with our standing postures right now, this is called posture work. So I'm introducing you to all these postures, and then at one point, we'll put them into the flow of what we call vinyasa, or this is flow yoga. But you have to know the poses before you can flow into them, right? So now what we're going to do is we're just going to start out at the front of our space again. And we're going to do a posture which is called Virabhadrasana 1. So with Virabhadrasana 1, we're going to keep our weight into our right foot, and you're simply going to take your left foot, and you're just going to take a big step back, all right? And then step forward. Take your right foot, and then simply step it back, and then step it forward. So when you work with your Vira 1, a lot of times it's too long of a stance, and you're not able to actually work with your hamstrings and your quads and your flexors to be able to come forward and back. All right, so now let's do that again. Keep the right foot on the floor, pick up your left foot, and then step back. Now you're stepping back and slightly out, so your feet are offset. Your back foot is barely turned out, and your hips are squared up to the front of the mat. Now, this is a little bit different than a lot of other people teach of your 1, but I want you to be in the flexion and extension of your hips, not avoiding it and turning and dumping. So now here, what all you're going to do is bend your front knee, and that front knee is going to track towards your second toe, and your back hip is going to come forward with that. Now, this isn't going to look like the pretty pictures that you might see in the magazines and the journals, but I want you to feel where your range of motion is. And then straighten the leg back out. Now again, when you bend your front knee, you're keeping your back leg straight, you're keeping the back heel down, and your back hip is coming forward. And it doesn't matter if your knee goes past the toe on the front leg, you don't want to be taking your belly forward. So the movement doesn't look like this.
Straighten your leg back out. And now let's do that again. And just find the posture with the legs. Press back. Find the posture. Press back. Find the posture. Now you're going to pause right where you feel. Now maybe you can get a little bit more distance forward and back. So you're doing a little research here. Now pausing. From here then you're going to bring your palms together and you're going to lift up and the arms are straight up in front of you. And envision that you're picking up the back of your rib cage. So there isn't a back bend in the torso. There's a back bend in your back thigh. And then you just see if you can go a little bit deeper. Yep, there you go. Soft eyes, deep breath. And just envision the weight stays in the heel, the leg stays straight. Notice if you're grabbing with your feet and if the hips want to turn. And as soon as that stuff starts to happen, you back away from that posture. Now inhale, draw yourself back up, bring the arms back down. Now you're going to push off your back foot and bring both feet back to the front. Just find standing, feel the difference left and right side. Now you're going to take the weight to your left foot, pick up your right, step back and out. And again, the hands are at the hips. Your hips are offset, your back foot's barely turned out. Now the back leg stays straight. You bend your front knee and you're pulling the back hip forward. You are not pausing and then dumping the belly because this is actually taking you out of the stretch and it's jamming you up into the back. So the back bend is in the leg, it's in the hip flexor. This is the psoas, iliacus, all right? We just go back and forth and adjust. Maybe you need to have the hips closer, front and back. Maybe you could go a little bit wider with your feet. And then you're going to pause right where you need to. Remember, the knee can come over the toes. Bring your palms together. Lift up, softly gazing into the thumbs. Now the thumbs are right over your lips, so the arms don't come behind you at all. Soften your eyes, deepen your breath. So really work with this leg straightening. So if you need to back up a little bit, because what you're doing is when you come forward, when the knee bends, you're letting go here instead of working here. Notice if the toes grab, and then just back up a little bit. So all those little things that happen are when you're gripping because you've gone past your ability to be in the posture. And then from here, you're going to release the arms, come on back up, and then push off, and come back to standing, back to where we started. Virabhadrasana 1. So again, take your left foot, step it back, set the feet, hands are at the hips, bend the front knee, find the posture, back leg straight, inhale, lift up. And lift up the kidneys, lift up the back of the body. So the whole torso lifts up. And then gently release, straighten out through the front leg, push off, and bring both feet back to the front. Take your right leg, step it back. Now same action, you're almost squared up. Bend the front knee, the action is in the front leg, bringing the back hip forward. When that action stops, stop. Bring the palms together, lift up. Softly gazing. And then release, straighten out through the legs, and push off. Both feet back to the front, back to Virabhadrasana 1. All right? Loosen up. Now we're going to do one more standing posture, which is fierce pose. Now fierce pose is a very simple posture, and a lot of people do have a tendency to go too deep. So what we're looking at is the bend in the ankle, the knee, and the hip is the same, right? So very softly, we're just going to take a seat. So imagine there's a little stool behind you that's not much lower than you are. Your hands are at your hips, and then you're just going to take a seat, and as you take that seat down, your knees are going to bend in the same flexion that you're putting in the hips, and your ankles are also going to bend. And so you're going to pause right there, then bring your palms together and gaze up through the thumbs. So there you are in this nice little accordion movement. Soften your eyes, deepen your breath. And so it's flexion at the hips. And then inhale, lift yourself up and release the arms, come back to the center. Now let's bring our hands to heart center. So what we're going to do is this is the beginning piece of the B series sun salutation, fierce posture. Some people call this a chair pose. It's not a chair pose. It's a fierce posture. Chair pose is different. So we're going to start out, you're going to take a seat, and then with your inhale, you're going to take your arms, bring them together, lift your chest up. Fierce posture. Soften your eyes, deepen your breath. Notice that you're not lifting at your forehead. So your eyes are soft. And now take an inhale, lift up, and with your exhale, come into a standing forward fold. Hang down, bend your knees, come into your own lap. Soften your eyes, deepen your breath. Now from here, we're going to come back up. So you're going to bend your knees a little bit. You're going to drop your hips like you're going to sit on that chair, and then bring your palms together. Lift yourself up back into the fierce pose. You're not grabbing with the feet. And then inhale, rise up, and we bring our hands back to where we started. So simple, right? So now let's take a deep breath in. With your exhale, drop your hips. Inhale, fierce posture. Exhale, standing forward fold. Now bend your knees, drop your hips, lift your chest up, bring the palms together, fierce posture, and then back to the beginning, back to where we started. Hands to heart center. Okay? All right, now we're going to go through our sun salutation, and we're going to go back into the floor and do some postures on the floor. So we're going to do a sun salutation C, which is what we started class with. So let's bring our hands to heart center. Release your arms down. Inhale, high prayer. Now palms together, arch back, lift your chest up. With your exhale, come into your standing forward fold. Now use your blocks or not. We're going to take our right foot, bring it back behind us. The legs start in a high lunge. Drop your knee, point your toe, lift yourself up away from the lunge. Outside edge of your left hip is dropping, and then we slowly pull ourselves forward. If you'd like to add a crescent moon, lift up. Now notice you lift the chest, you arch back, but you don't dump forward. So the hips are set. And then as we exhale, we're going to come down either hands on the mat or hands on the block. Lift the chest, pull the hip forward. Now, you can go back with the hands on the floor, or you can set yourself like this. Lift the knees, and then back you go into the downward facing dog. From here, come into your plank position. Drop your knees, chest and chin. Inhale, onto the belly, cobra. Now lift your chest up, groin lines are down, knees are down. Your legs aren't turned on, but your butt sure is. You lift the chest up, we pull forward out of our pants, up onto your hands and knees. Now spread your fingers, lift the knees, and we hinge back into our downward facing dog. Now you could use the blocks, drop your knees, or you look between your hands, you'll take your right foot forward just like you brought it back. Then you're going to drop your knee down, point your toe, lift yourself up, use your front leg. Outside edge of the right hip drops. We pull forward, we press back. We pull forward. You can keep playing there, you can pause here, bring your palms together, lifting, arching back into a crescent moon. Now this isn't really in the 12 position, but I love it. And then with your exhale, you bring the hands down onto the floor or onto the blocks. You turn your toes under, you lift, you shift off, exhale to the front, standing forward folds. Now from here, instead of coming up, we're just going to separate our feet, take a seat, and down we go. Any questions from there? Good. All right, now we're going to do our bridge position that we broke down our first class. But we're just going to use the block. We're not going to use the strap. So you're going to take a block, and you can either bring it in the skinny or the second, or if you're a really tall, big person, you could do it with the third. I find this is too wide. I like the second width, right? So now you're going to lay back. You're going to hold that block between your thighs. We have our fingertips just touching the heels. And then from here, you're going to take your arms and you're going to bring them along the sides of your torso. Now we're not using the arms. So now from here, we're just going to do those little pelvic tilts. So we sit down with the hips. This arches our back. You can see my back. And then I'm going to release, and then I pull my pubic bone towards my navel. I take my back into a soft arch, and then I pull my pubic bone towards my navel. Now you can see I'm moving my head back and forth. I'm sliding, so I'm going too far. So I'm going to slow down until just my pelvis is moving. I'm not going to drag my torso anywhere. And then I'm just going to find, okay, that's about what I've got today. It's going to be different every day. All right. Then I'm going to pause here. Now, keeping the hips heavy, I'm going to pick up my belly. I'm not going to pull my pubic bone towards my navel. I'm not using my arms. I'm going to lift my belly, and then I'm going to lift my chest towards my chin, and I'm using my butt. I'm not using my legs or my feet. Of course, there's going to be some action in the back of my leg because of how my knee is bent and the angle of my body, but I'm really using my butt cheeks. And it's not because I'm squeezing them together, it's because they're picking me up and they know what to do. All right? Body's super smart. And then very softly, we're going to drop the hips back down. Take a moment, keep your chest high, and then same action. Lift the belly button, lift the chest, bridge position, and gently bring the hips back down. And then again, keep going up and down, or if you'd like, you can hold the posture. Chest lifts. Notice, are you grabbing with your feet? Don't grab with your feet. The arms aren't necessary because it's the back line of the body. So there's that old school where you bring your arms behind you and you squeeze your shoulder blades and you drag everything. It's like, no, your arms don't do the work. It's the movement of the chest up. Chest lifting, pelvis being lifted by the back line. Don't pull your pubic bone up. You're interfering with the posture. Nice. Good. Okay, and then when we're ready, you're going to softly bring yourself back down. The lower back does not flatten. So you're keeping the hips dropping. You're using the back line. The front line is just like a little brake system. You don't have to work super hard. And then take that block out, and you're just going to release, and we're just going to soften. Now from here, your block is going to go under your hips, and we're going to put our legs up into a variation which is called Viparita Karani. So you're going to lift your butt up, and you're going to take the block either at the lowest height or the second height. So you're going to bridge up, and you're going to put that block right underneath your sacrum. So you have the tailbone, and then here's my hip bones right here. So you can see I have that block between my hip bone and my tailbone, not above or below. My arms are just along the sides. I'm going to externally rotate them. So you see this looks really much like a bridge position. It actually is. It's a supported bridge. Then pick up your knees, and the knees are over the hips. And then if this isn't a problem, bring your legs up. And you're in a supported legs up, right? When you come out, you do exactly what I did. So I lifted my heels up. You really actually shouldn't. Pick your butt up, take that out, and you drop down and you just find neutral. But stay up there, feel the breath, and you want to open up the chest. And you want to be standing on the ceiling. You have your legs over your hips, and you're breathing. Soften your eyes, relax your face. You have no tension in the eyes. Your shoulders are gently underneath you, and you're lifting the heart up. So there's a cascading energy where the hips are higher, and then your spine slowly cascades down into the chest, and the head is low. Soften your eyes, deepening your breath. Notice the jawline is soft, the tongue has space. Inhaling and exhaling. Now you could stay up here as long as you feel comfortable as you're practicing on your own, but we're going to be moving on to another position. So you're up here, you can be up here about 5 minutes, 10 minutes, if you'd like to. We've only been up here a few. The longer that you stay in these postures, the more benefit that you're going to have from them. All the way to the bottom, all the way to the top. Soft eyes, deep, 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 deep breath. Ebbing and flowing. And then again, when you come down, you bring the feet down, set them, lift your hips, take the block out, and then the hips drop. So you're not tucking your tailbone ever. Just don't do it. It's not part of what we're doing here. And then just find neutral. Now from here, we're going to come into a fish pose. So with a fish pose, you would take your thumbs, bring them right underneath the edges of your hips, and you would straighten out through your legs. Your elbows squeeze in, and then you just press your elbows down, and you lift your chest up. Chest lifts, and then you let your neck melt back, and notice how I'm sliding towards my head until the back of my head touches the floor, not the top of my head. So I'm kind of like on this back top edge, like if my head was square, I would be on the back corner of my head. Your eyes are softly gazing towards the ceiling. Your jawline is relaxing, your tongue has space, and you're breathing. Now, if you can, then you take the thumbs out, and you're just going to keep the elbows on the floor with your hands by the sides, lifting. Soft, soft, soft eyes, deep, deep, deep breath. So this is the fish position. Now, you can also do an assisted fish. So I'm going to get out of the pose. I bring my hands overhead. I press, and I lift, and then I get my shoulders down and the back of my head. So that's how you come out. Now, if I would like to do an assisted fish instead of the faux fish, I can use a block, and I'm going to bring that block right between my shoulder blades. So right at my breastbone, that's where the lower part of this block is. It goes between my shoulder blades, and when I lay back, you can see that it doesn't stop my head from going back, but my head bumps into it. And then I'm just going to take my arms, I can have them overhead, out by the sides, wherever I have them. I'm not in pain, and I can breathe. So I can keep my knees bent, or I can make my legs straight, whichever. And I want to have a little bit of energy in the legs if they're straight. Okay. You could also use a soccer ball here. Now, I'm going to use my hands to take my head up. And then I always like to come up through my abdominal wall because I'm strong enough to come up through my abdominal wall. Now, we could use a soccer ball. And a soccer ball is a really nice thing to use because it's soft. And I don't know about you, but I think every garage in America has one of these somewhere in the rafter. You could also use like a kickball, a volleyball, things that are really meant to be mushed. I don't fill these up all the way, so they're a little soft. Now the same thing, that comes right underneath my chest. I take my arms out, and you see how I'm just going to lay back. Now my head floats, but the nice thing about the ball is I can kind of move it around and find out right where I want it. And I'm just going to simply have my eyes off my cheekbones again. And I breathe. My elbows can be on the floor, they can float. You just want to make sure that whatever movement that you're doing, you're not inhibiting your breath. So you notice how I'm doing all these postures, I'm talking to you, I have an easiness in my movement, my breath is flowing freely. And that's always the way you feel in a posture. So if you're holding your breath, or you feel like your head's going to explode, or your eyes are going to pop out, you probably want to rethink what you're doing there. It's not yoga. And now to come out again, if you have something underneath you, use your hands underneath your head. You can use the arms to help bring you up if you don't have quite the core yet. And always allow yourself to soften. Soften your eyes, deepen your breath. And then once you feel released, then you're going to come away, and we're going to finish our practice with Shavasana. Now with Shavasana, we're going to use a bolster if you'd like to.
You can roll up blankets. Again, you can put your legs up on the seat of a couch, on a chair, ottoman, anything like that. And what you're going to do is have that little extra lift underneath the thighs. Now you might decide you want to put layers on, things like that. Maybe you need a blanket over you. I'm going to grab a shirt. So the reason is that when you lay back into Shavasana, you want to feel comfortable. You're not too warm, you're not too cold. So if you want to wrap yourself up like a cocoon, you go right ahead, just as long as you don't sweat. If you want the air on your body, that's fine, but make sure that you're not going to get goose flesh or goosebumps, right? Now, you're going to lay yourself back. You can have this roll underneath your legs. You can have your legs up on the chair or the couch. Your arms rest on the sides of your body, and your shoulders are down onto the floor. And again, your face is going to be level with the ceiling. Now, once you find yourself in that nice, easy position, then allow yourself to soften. Notice your jawline, your tongue. Give yourself lots of space. So notice anywhere that you're holding on to tension. And just allow the body to let go. If you don't know if you're holding, a nice exercise is to tighten up certain areas of the body. And so then you can just feel if you're already tight, because you'll be too tight to tighten. Feel the body soften, release, surrender down into gravity. Nothing you need to do, but just simply be present. Let your eyes sink. Release your jawline. Empty your palate. Notice the movement of your breath. Feeling the diaphragm, the gentle breath of the breath at the tip of the nostrils. Bless you. Nothing you need to know because you've done it all. Let the floor take you. Let the floor support you as you sink. Rest in the breath. And feel the flesh just gently melt away. Letting go of the bones. Allow your skin to expand. Soft, fluid, effortless. Now when we're ready to return to being active, we'll begin to deepen our breath. Begin to add movement by wiggling your fingers and your toes. Give yourself a nice stretch. And then we'll bend the knees and we're going to roll off to our side and rest on the side for a few breaths. And then you'll use both of your arms to gently press yourself away from the floor. And once again, we'll sit ourselves up nice and tall. Put a little bit of a lift underneath your hips. You can sit up on the cushion. You could also sit up on a chair. Anything that helps you be tall through your spine. Take a few deep breaths in and out. Feel your body. Notice any shifts or changes from the time you began until now. And then we'll bring our hands to heart center and we'll end with our chant, which is Om and Om Shanti 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 with Namaste. So let's take a deep breath in. Another breath. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Namaste. Once again, thank you for joining me, and I will see you again for lesson number 3 in our series. Until then, have a good day. Bye-bye.